When my sister stood in the middle of my living room and said, "My son is your husband's child," I froze. For a moment, the world went quiet. Not a sound, not even my own breath. Everyone stared at me, waiting for me to scream, to collapse, to do something. But instead, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she had no idea what she just walked into. Hey everyone, before I start my story, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share your thoughts in the comments. You won't believe how this story unfolds. My name is Maria, and this is how my perfect-looking family shattered in one evening, and how I learned that sometimes silence can be the loudest kind of revenge. It all started about a year ago. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 6 years. We weren't perfect, but we had something steady, something I thought was real. We met at university, fell in love young, and built a life together step by step. I trusted him more than anyone in the world. At least, I used to. Then, there was my sister, Clara. She was always the dramatic one, the kind who thrived on attention. Ever since we were kids, she had this way of turning everything into a show. If I got a good grade, she'd cry that no one noticed her efforts. If I bought a dress, she'd coincidentally buy the same one a week later. But I loved her. She was my sister. I thought she was just a little insecure. After Daniel and I got married, Clara became even closer to him. She'd call him for advice, message him about random things, and drop by our house just to say hi. I never thought much of it. Daniel always told me, "She's just lonely, Maria. Be kind to her." And I believed him. I always believed him. Then, a few years later, Clara got pregnant. She said the father didn't want to be involved, that it was a mistake, and she wanted to raise her son alone. I admired her strength. I helped her set up the nursery, babysat, even paid for diapers when she was short on money. Daniel was supportive too. He treated her son Liam like his own nephew. He'd bring him toys, teach him how to build things, sometimes even take him to the park when I was busy. Looking back now, every single one of those moments feels like a clue I refuse to see. It wasn't until a few months ago that things started to feel strange. Daniel began staying late at work more often. His phone would light up with messages he'd quickly hide. When I asked, he said it was stress from work. But then I noticed something that didn't make sense. Every time Clara called, he'd step out of the room. But I told myself not to overthink. Families talk, right? Maybe they were planning a surprise for me or something. But my gut wouldn't rest. One evening, I saw a message flash across his screen while he was showering. It said, "Don't forget his school event tomorrow. He'll be so happy to see you there." My heart stopped. His school event? Daniel and I didn't have kids. Who else could she be talking about? I opened the phone and saw the contact name, Clara. I wish I could say I exploded, screamed, confronted him right away, but I didn't. I just sat there, the phone in my hand, feeling my whole world blur. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she meant someone else. Maybe it was innocent. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a quiet storm building inside me. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I kissed him goodbye, packed his lunch, and watched him drive off. But instead of going to work myself, I followed him. I know it sounds wrong, but when your heart starts whispering something's off, you listen. He didn't go to his office. He drove across town to a small school, the same one Clara's son attended. I watched him from my car as he got out holding a gift bag. Then I saw Clara. She was standing by the gate, waving at him like they'd known each other forever. Liam came running, and Daniel bent down. Not like an uncle greeting a nephew, but like a father seeing his child. He hugged him, tight. My stomach twisted so badly I thought I'd be sick. I wanted to get out, to scream, to ask why, but I stayed still. Because something inside me said, not yet. That night, Daniel came home pretending everything was fine. He kissed me like nothing happened. I wanted to confront him, but I held back. I wanted to hear the truth from someone else's lips first. And that chance came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Clara called and said she wanted to visit. She sounded nervous, almost shaky. I said, "Sure, come over." She arrived late in the evening wearing that same perfume Daniel loved. She sat down, clutching her purse like it held her courage. She said, "Maria, I have something to tell you. You deserve the truth." I just smiled. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath and said, "Liam, he's Daniel's son." The words hung in the air like a curse. For a split second, I felt my heart stop, then start again, slowly, painfully. She looked at me, waiting for a reaction. Maybe she wanted me to cry, to scream, to beg her to explain. But I didn't. Instead, I started laughing, softly at first, then louder. Her face twisted in confusion. "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "Oh, Clara," I said, wiping away a tear. "You really have no idea, do you?" Because what Clara didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd already seen the DNA test results. 3 weeks ago, I'd received an anonymous envelope in the mail. Inside were the results of a paternity test. Daniel and Liam's names right there. The result said 0% probability of paternity. Daniel wasn't Liam's father, but I had kept quiet because I wanted to see just how far they'd both go to destroy themselves. So I leaned forward and said calmly, "Clara, are you sure you want to keep talking? Because once I start, you might wish you hadn't opened your mouth." Her face faltered. That's when Daniel walked in through the front door, right on cue. He froze when he saw us, his wife and his supposed mistress sitting together. Clara turned to him, her voice trembling. "I told her, Daniel. She knows." I looked at him and smiled. "Oh, Daniel, I think it's time we all stop pretending." And that's when everything began to unravel. Daniel's face turned pale, as if every drop of blood had drained from him. He stood frozen at the door, still holding his car keys, eyes darting between me and Clara like a man cornered by his own lies. The air was thick, silent, heavy. You could feel the tension pressing against the walls. I leaned back in my chair, pretending calm, though inside my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Clara looked terrified now, as if she hadn't expected the scene to play out this way. I guess she thought Daniel and I would fight, and she'd stand there looking like the victim, the woman who bravely confessed her truth. But instead, it was Daniel who looked like he wanted to vanish. He finally spoke, his voice low and shaking. "Maria, whatever she told you, it's not what you think." "Oh, Daniel," I said, softly, almost kindly, "I'm not thinking anything. I already know." Clara looked from me to him, confused. "Wait, what do you mean you know? I just told you." I smiled, tilting my head. "Yes, you told me your version, but the truth, Clara, that's something entirely different." Daniel's jaw clenched. He threw a quick, panicked glance at her. I could see it, the fear in his eyes. Not fear of guilt, but fear of what I might reveal. Because Daniel knew me. He knew I didn't act without evidence. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a thin brown envelope. I placed it on the table, gently pushing it toward Clara. You might want to open that before you start spinning more stories. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. She scanned the paper, her face turning from smugness to confusion, and then to horror. "What is this?" she whispered. Daniel snatched the paper from her and froze when he saw the heading, "Paternity Test Result, 0% probability of paternity." He looked at me, speechless. I folded my arms and said quietly, "You both had your secrets, but you didn't realize someone was already watching you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Clara's eyes filled with tears, not guilt, but anger. "You had me tested? You had my son tested?" she shouted. "I didn't," I said, shaking my head. "Someone else did. I just received the results 3 weeks ago. I don't know who sent them, but I'm guessing maybe the real father got nervous. You see, Clara, not everyone is as good at lying as you are." She stood up, trembling. "You're lying. You made this up." "Oh, I wish I had," I said, standing too, my voice calm but sharp as glass. "But unfortunately for you, that piece of paper is from a certified lab. You see, while you were busy playing house with your little fantasy, I was busy piecing together the puzzle. And guess what, Clara? The puzzle doesn't fit." Daniel stepped closer, rubbing his forehead. "Maria, listen, I cut him off. Don't you dare finish that sentence, Daniel. You had a choice to tell me the truth, but you let me look like a fool instead. Do you even realize how many times I defended you to everyone? To her?" His silence was louder than any confession. Clara suddenly began to sob, dropping to the couch, her hands covering her face. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to go this way. He was supposed to—" She stopped herself mid-sentence. "Supposed to what?" I asked coldly. "Leave me?" She didn't answer, but that was all I needed to know. I felt something inside me go numb. That kind of pain, the kind that turns love into nothing but ashes, isn't loud. It's quiet. It's heavy. But it's also powerful. I turned to Daniel. "You know what's funny? I was going to surprise you this weekend. I planned a trip for us. I wanted to fix things because I thought we were just drifting apart. I didn't know the real reason you were so distant was sitting in my sister's living room." His lips parted, but no sound came out. "So tell me, Daniel, how long were you planning to keep this act going? Until her child grew up calling you dad? Until she got tired of playing second wife?" He swallowed hard, and for the first time, I saw a tear roll down his cheek. But I didn't feel pity. I felt peace. Because in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't the broken one here. They were. Clara finally stood, her eyes swollen. "Fine," she spat. "Maybe the test says what it says, but that doesn't change the fact that you've always had everything, Maria. The house, the husband, the perfect life. I just wanted something for myself for once." I stared at her for a long moment. "You wanted something for yourself? You could have asked. You didn't have to steal." She laughed bitterly. "You don't understand what it's like being compared to you your whole life. Every family dinner, every holiday. Maria did this. Maria's so kind. Maria's so smart. I was invisible. Daniel looked at me like I was worth something for the first time in my life." Her words hit hard, but not the way they thought they would. They didn't make me angry. They made me sad. Because in her desperation to be seen, she'd lost everything that truly mattered. "You wanted to be seen, Clara?" I said quietly. "Well, congratulations. Everyone's going to see you now." She frowned. "What do you mean?" I smiled faintly. "You really think I'd keep something like this a secret? I already told Mom and Dad you were coming over tonight. And you know how they are. They love family drama. They'll be here in about 10 minutes. Clara's face went white. "You wouldn't." "Watch me." At that exact moment, Daniel's phone started ringing. He looked at it, then at me, panic spreading across his face. "Maria, please don't." "Oh, don't worry," I said softly. "I'm not the one who called them." Because I hadn't. But they were coming anyway. Just then, headlights flashed through the window, my parents' car pulling up in the driveway. Clara gasped, clutching her purse, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "Maria, please," she whispered. "Don't do this to me." "Do what?" "Tell the truth?" I walked to the door as my mother's voice called from outside, cheerful and unaware of the storm waiting inside. I took a deep breath, turned back to look at them, my cheating husband and my jealous sister, and said, "You both wanted attention? You're about to get more than you ever imagined." And then I opened the door. My mom walked in smiling, holding a basket of food with my dad right behind her. "Maria, sweetheart, we thought we'd surprise you." "Oh, trust me, Mom, you couldn't have come at a better time." Daniel tried to speak, but I gently put a hand up. "Not yet, darling. Let's all have a seat first." As we sat around the table, the tension was unbearable. My mother noticed immediately. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "Actually, there's something we all need to talk about. It's about Clara and Daniel." Both of them froze. My parents exchanged confused looks. "Maria," Daniel started, but I interrupted softly. "Clara was about to tell you something very important." My mother turned to her younger daughter, eyes wide. "Clara? What's going on?" Clara looked like she wanted to vanish. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Daniel looked just as desperate. I leaned back, folded my arms, and smiled. "Go on, Clara. You wanted to be the one who told the truth, remember?" Her lips trembled, her hands shaking so badly she dropped her purse. Paper spilled onto the floor, including the paternity test I'd left on the table earlier. My mother's eyes fell on it. She picked it up, reading slowly. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Clara, what is this?" And in that frozen silence, the first tear finally rolled down Clara's cheek. I just sat there, watching it all, the chaos, the guilt, the truth unraveling piece by piece, because this wasn't revenge, this was justice, and it was only the beginning. My mother's hand trembled as she held the paper, her eyes darting between the lines as if trying to make sense of what she was reading. Daniel frowned, leaning closer. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone stern but confused. Clara looked like she was about to faint. Daniel had gone completely silent, his face pale, lips pressed tightly together. I could see him thinking of what to say, but there was no escape now, not this time. Mom looked up at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maria, what is this test? Why does it say Daniel isn't the father of Clara's child?" I took a deep breath. I could have cried. I could have screamed. But I didn't. I just smiled sadly and said, "Because he's not." Dad's chair creaked as he stood up. "Clara, is this true?" Clara covered her face, sobbing quietly. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." Mom gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "Clara, please tell me this is some kind of mistake." Clara shook her head, her words trembling. "It started years ago. Daniel and we made a mistake. I thought I was in love, and I thought he would leave me for me, but..." She trailed off, her shoulders shaking. I sat there, staring at her. Hearing it from her mouth didn't make it easier. I had suspected for months, maybe even years, but the sound of her voice confessing it tore through me like a blade. Mom burst into tears, standing up and backing away as if the air had turned poisonous. "How could you do this to your sister?" Clara cried harder, clutching her hands together. "I don't know, Mom, I don't know. I was stupid. I was jealous." Dad's face turned red with anger. Jealous? You destroy your sister's marriage, her life, her trust, and you call that jealousy? His voice boomed across the room, but it didn't feel satisfying. It didn't undo what they had done. Daniel finally spoke, his voice breaking. It was my fault too. I should have stopped it before it even began. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I turned to him, my expression calm but cold. Daniel, do you even hear yourself? You're not talking about a moment. You're talking about years of deceit. You lied every single day and expected me to live beside you, smiling, cooking, caring, while you shared secrets with my own sister. He lowered his head. Maria, I swear I loved you. I still do. I let out a small, bitter laugh. No, you loved what I gave you, the comfort, the peace, the safety, but you never loved me, because love doesn't stab you in the back and watch you bleed. Mom sank into a chair, shaking her head, muttering to herself. Dad stood near the window, silent and furious. The room was spinning with tension, guilt, and shattered memories. I could have ended it there, screamed, thrown them out, closed the door forever. But there was something else I needed to do. Something that had been sitting quietly in my heart ever since I found out the truth. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small envelope. Daniel, I said softly, before you walked in today, I was planning to give you this. He looked confused. What is it? It's the deed to our new house. I bought it last month. I handed it to him, and his eyes widened as he opened it. But you know what's interesting? I already changed the ownership yesterday. It's no longer ours. It's mine. Just mine. His eyes darted up. You changed it without telling me? I smiled faintly. Why not? You were busy keeping your own little secrets. I figured I should learn from the best. Clara wiped her tears, looking up. Maria, please don't hate me. I was lost. I didn't mean to hurt you. Hate you? I said softly. No, Clara, I don't hate you. I pity you. She looked stunned. You had everything you ever needed, Clara. A family who loved you, a sister who would have done anything for you. But instead of finding happiness, you tried to steal someone else's. And now, look at you. Her lips trembled as tears streamed down her cheeks. Daniel tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled it back. Don't, I said firmly. We're done. You don't get to touch me anymore. He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. I understand. Mom finally spoke, her voice shaking. Maria, what will you do now? I looked at her and smiled softly. I'll start over. Dad turned to me, his voice softer now. Do you need help? I shook my head. No, Dad, I've got it covered. Because I did. What none of them knew was that weeks ago, when I first got the anonymous DNA results, I had already started planning my next steps. I had quietly transferred my savings, found a new apartment, and even filed for divorce. Daniel thought he was living comfortably in a home that was half his, but legally, it wasn't anymore. He'd soon find out when the papers arrived. I turned to Clara one last time. You said your son was Daniel's child, but you never checked who the real father was, did you? She blinked, confused. What? I reached into the same envelope again and pulled out another folded paper. The real father contacted me. He wanted to stay anonymous, but he sent proof. And Clara, it's not Daniel. Her eyes widened in horror. That's not possible. Oh, it is, I said. You thought you were in control, but life has a funny way of humbling people. She froze, staring at the paper as if it were poison. I didn't even have to explain. The look on her face said it all. I walked toward the door, grabbing my coat. I think that's enough truth for one day. As I reached the doorway, Mom stood and hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You didn't deserve this. I smiled faintly. No one ever deserves betrayal, but sometimes it's the only way we see who truly belongs in our lives. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a wave of freedom. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because I had won anything, but because I had finally let go. Behind me, I could still hear voices, Clara crying, Daniel trying to explain, my parents in shock. But I didn't turn around. I had spent too long living in the shadows of their mistakes. As I reached my car, I looked up at the sky. The clouds were breaking apart, revealing soft sunlight filtering through. It felt like the universe was reminding me that storms don't last forever. I took a deep breath, started the engine, and whispered to myself, "You did it, Maria. You're free." A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from the same anonymous sender, the one who had sent the first DNA test. Inside, there was a simple note. Now you know the truth. Some secrets aren't meant to destroy you, but to set you free. No name, no address, just those words. I smiled. Maybe it was fate, maybe karma, or maybe someone out there just wanted to give me closure. Either way, I had it now. That night, I packed the last of my things and looked around the empty house one last time. The walls had seen laughter, love, lies, and heartbreak, but they would no longer hold me captive. As I closed the door behind me, I whispered, "Goodbye, old life." And for the first time in a long time, it truly felt like a new beginning. Because sometimes betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter where you finally take the pen back